So fans, lovers, casual people, and I guess people new to the industry. This is your podcast, Exploring Nollywood Podcast, and your host, Mimi. And with me, I have Tosin Otudeko, now not AMVCA nominated producer and writer of the popular Wedding Party. Please, Auntie, say hi.
Hello everyone, and hi Mimi. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I have lots and lots of questions. Well, I always ask people to introduce themselves.
Hmm.
So, how would you introduce yourself in your own words?
I would normally say my name is Tosin, and I'm a writer and producer, as well as the founder of the Garden Theatre. And if I
Oh,
were to go on a little bit longer, I would say I am a um, somebody who started off this journey being quite theatre obsessed.
mhm.
Found other pathways to express that obsession.
Okay, so we have to talk about Nigerian theater plays because it's a huge industry that is very often not spoken about.
Hmm. Absolutely. Oh no, it's a massive industry. I think it doesn't get as much, should we say, publicity as film at the moment, or as Nollywood, because of the brand that Nollywood has become across, basically across the diaspora, and across the continents. But yeah, theater is actually very much, there's a lot of work going on in theater, with practitioners, and there's a lot of activity, particularly within the seasonal periods nowadays. So yes, I have written plays before. One particular one, which I would say is, I suppose, my flagship play, or the main play, is a musical called Heartbeat, which has
Oh,
been,
a musical.
yes, it is a
Wow.
musical, and I've written other plays, so the plays for other people on request, as well as plays for church. So that has also been, yeah, interesting way to express.
Yes. So what is it about theater that
Mm.
draws you to it?
That's such a good question. I don't know why I've always been so passionate about theatre. So I believe, well, from when I was very young, first of all, I was drawn to the physical space actually being within a theatre environment. So I always felt that I would eventually end up there. I just didn't know how to.
Mm.
So I enjoyed the being on stage as well as being in the audience. So just the entire process of performing to a live audience, as well as the feedback you get from that, but also watching from the audience, being able to experience people really giving their all, in a sense, to interpret a script, and for you, and almost like you and the actors, to engage in that journey together. So that shared experience. So there's just something about that. I think there's something about also the building of theaters as well, the actual theater buildings, that I
Yeah.
feel, I was really drawn to. So somehow that I knew that was always going to be part of my journey. Yes, that has really led to a lot of interesting, exciting things. When I was at uni, I wanted to work in a theatre so bad, so I walked up to my local theatre, which was, I think, was
Oh,
called Opera House, and they didn't have any jobs, so they sent me to the Palace Theatre down the road, and so they had jobs for me. So I was selling ice cream
wow.
very badly. But then I got to watch the musical, which I've now come to love so much, Les Mis, for like
Oh.
every night, from every different position in the space. So I think that was obviously very, as an act of providence, doing that job, and yeah, here we are.
Amazing. Well, I have never considered theater. I don't think theater has been. I've seen Wicked
Yes.
and I loved it, seen The Lion King, but
Yeah.
I've never really considered theater. So we know that the early pioneers of Nollywood came from the theater, and Nollywood is very much inspired by that theatrical
Mm.
spirit. But what is your Nollywood story? I always
Mm.
ask people, how do they find themselves in Nollywood? What attracts them? What is their relationship with Nollywood?
So growing up, yes, of course, we got to know the name Nollywood. We got to understand the name Nollywood. I don't think initially it was just I think obviously we know where it was coined from, but I'm not sure it's anything that people thought would stick. However, because of
Mm.
organic and how really the industry just sort of grew exponentially because people just loved, number one, to see themselves in those stories, and they loved the accessibility of the stories. And this particularly happened, across, Africa diaspora, I suppose, that it was really a case of the product reaching its market, basically. So Nollywood itself just became quite an important brand, I suppose, in the whole in the growth of the Nigerian film industry. And we know obviously how it started with the marketer, and in terms of the style of production, etc., and really how that has grown, in a sense, and evolved over the years. So my relationship with Nollywood has obviously initially been an observer, a consumer, to being a partaker, I would say. Um, but over the last, should I say, 7 years, more so a partaker in the craft areas, so writing.
What led you to, so you mentioned you put on a lot of plays.
Yeah.
How did you particularly get into the industry? Because you have
Yeah.
a background in writing. I believe you went to school for it. Yeah,
No, I didn't.
you, no.
No, I
Mm.
didn't. No, so
Oh,
yeah, I studied chemistry with
oh
um,
wow.
property law at uni, and
Chemistry and oh,
IP law, yes, which actually eventually became very useful. That's the intellectual property side of it,
mm,
but
yes.
certainly not so much the chemistry side of it. But I did enjoy it. Yeah, so what happened was that I was in Nigeria, and then I'd started writing this musical. So I went to school. So I did a 1 semester classical acting course, because actually my initial desire was to
Mhm.
be an actress, to be on stage. So I used to
Oh,
perform poetry, and I'd always started writing poetry and started writing songs as part of a youth group in my church while at university. And that was a really wonderful time just to explore our innate talents in this very unbridled fashion. And so yeah, we all used to write and sing and really explore our creativity in a safe manner, and also had the opportunity to perform. So that translated really to this desire to see some of these works being staged in some form. So I started writing the musical while I worked actually in two different consulting companies. Started writing the musical towards the end of like the second consulting job, and started applying to drama school. So when I just started on the journey of producing the musical, of course that came with its range of challenges and
of course.
learning and growth. But I suppose yes, that's the journey of a producer. So you start to learn that, but what happens also is that you start to develop the skills and develop your network, which will eventually always come in handy, no matter what field you end up in within the creative industries. So through that process, I was also able to work with collaborators. So Lefodo was one who actually produced the musical, the last version of the musical in 2016. But prior to that, I was basically putting feelers out for work in writing and
Mm.
writing particularly for screen, because I suppose at that time there was this sort of burgeoning industry for content, really good quality content on TV, and particularly through our cable network, and through that actually, and through those networks, interestingly, that I'd built within the theatre industry, I then started to segue into. I started off with a writing job with Ebony Live TV on their Desperate
Mm.
Housewife adaptation, and that
Oh,
then led
really?
to the eventually also the wedding party, and so that was, I suppose, my entry into screen from theatre, which was very interesting.
That's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let me ask the question that's on everyone's mind. The wedding party.
Yes.
Everyone loved it. Everyone saw it. It was one of the highest grossing Nollywood movies for a very long while. What
Mm-hmm.
was how did that come to be? What was your inspiration? Because it definitely struck a chord with millions of Nigerians, both in Nigeria and in the diaspora.
Yeah, well, it was actually Mo Abudu's inspiration. So she reached out to
Mm,
me. So, like I said, I'd already worked with the
that's really nice.
yes, on the TV series. So she reached out to me, I think it was Chris in 2016, that she had an idea for a film, a feature film.
Mm,
And it was going to be called The Wedding Party. It was, she wanted it to be funny. She wanted to have all the intrigues and excitements of, this wedding event in Lagos. And then she asked me to, yeah, come up with a synopsis and a treatment, which I did. And so that's how that journey started. And then obviously that continued on to a first draft, or first a second draft, etc. And then we had a couple of reviews, etc. And so it it and then it sort of went through the development process sort of internally with the production team. So I with the director as well as the other producers that were involved. So it was really exciting when it was happening because nobody knew what it was going to transpire to.
mm,
So yeah, so just obviously seeing the journey and just like you said, the fact that it connected, I think it was just a testament also to the producers and their vision for it as
mm.
well. I think having that sort of vision and obviously not relenting, so ensuring that it did sort of hit the commercial targets that needed to, etc. And went on that journey with the opening in TIFF and everything. Yes, I think it was an amazing time also for the industry as well. And yeah, and like you said, a real people pleaser, and
Yeah.
that's always really exciting to see. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's a very humble answer. I feel like you should definitely claim a lot more credits. Um,
No, well, I've got more than enough credit for for it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you should claim enough credit. But let's move on to Over the Bridge, which is
Yes.
your first time producing an Hollywood movie.
Yes, it is.
Now, for those not in the know, Over the Bridge is a movie that Auntie produced that's currently making the rounds across festivals. It opened in Nigeria, it showed in the UK, it's also showed in London, in America, and has now been nominated for several awards for the AMVCA. Now, can you tell us, how did Over the Bridge come to be? How did you come to be producing it? Why did you switch from being a writer and you were
Hmm.
like, okay, this is what I'm going to believe in?
Gonna do. Yeah, so obviously, yeah, it was interesting because I probably didn't intend to produce it. I definitely pitched it um
Mm,
to various other people at various points, whether it was just to take a look at the script. And so really a large part actually of my writing journey, what was very instrumental to it was my process of finding a script mentor. So I had
mm,
basically, based on things I had watched, I'm very impacted by things I'd watched. So basically, there was one particular film I'd watched, and I saw that it was on the BBC and it was in Nigeria. So I looked out, I searched for the writer. This was back then, um, you know, and yeah, and through that opened up a meeting with quite an established writer in the
mm,
UK who was really helpful and really instrumental too. So basically that was my school, in terms of so he was actually the first person, the first sort of professional person that I had mentioned the idea to. And so what he said he was going to do, well, okay, I'm just going to help you, really help you sort of understand the writing process, etc., and just
mm,
sort of advise you along the way. And yeah, and that so I really had somebody to be able to share the script with and give feedback. And of course, when I then started on the producing journey, that process carried on with the director as well. So that
mm.
then became a formal development process towards the production. So, I mean, the idea really came when I was driving back from my grand aunt's funeral. And
Oh,
because it was on one side of the bridge, as we know it, how Third Mainland kind of sort of, I won't say it separates, but it acts as a bridge or a connector, if you want to look at it on one angle, right? Between, I guess, two different worlds, not
yeah.
in terms of maybe demographics, activity, etc., or profile and all of that sort of thing. Don't want to get too technical, but so I was sort of just driving across the bridge, and I just imagined this man living this anonymous lifestyle initially in in the depot mile 12, the bus depot
Mm.
mile, and just sort of wondering what would have sort of taken him there, what would have been his journey, and etc. So those questions led to forming the character and forming the story around his life, his marriage, his work. I was also quite interested in, first of all, I'm quite interested in transportation in general,
Okay.
modes of transportation, so trains, planes, automobiles. So,
Mhm. And Auntie, don't forget the leg dispense.
of course, that's the main one. The main one, exactly, through which you achieve so many things, including exercise. So, and of course, through which it's that's also something that's also very good for your mental health. But we digress. So, anyway, so yes, there's just all the various modes of transportation, and I suppose the symbolic meaning behind that. You're getting from point A to point B,
Yeah.
etc. Whole sort of symbolism of travel, of the journey, of reaching a destination. So anyway, so I guess I just always had this fascination with transportation, and for me, why in Nigeria, but sorry, in Lagos, maybe particularly, we didn't have an established transportation system.
Mm-hmm.
So that so that now became kind of the focus of what the character was going to be working on. And through that, we were able to play around even more so with the director. For he had a real love for water and the themes of water, etc. So we were able to sort of combine those two elements, and as well as cut out any additional elements, so that that just that may have just created too many layers for this particular sort of a film, to be honest. So yeah, just be able to I think hopefully reach a much more succinct kind of conclusion, and just through all that, the process of thinking through sort of writing, rewriting, because I'd obviously started writing it, dropped it for a bit to work on other projects, and then during COVID kind of picked it up again, and that's when it sort of picked up the actual producing side of it as well, while when the director was on board. So it was actually a really good time at that period for it all to come together. But back to the writing, yeah, I think that was just the inspiration. It was just sort of imagining this man and his journey, and what would have made him want to escape his current life.
Mm.
And that was very intriguing to me. And over
I
the
think
year, yeah,
that will resonate with a lot of Nigerians as well.
yes, exactly, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so how is producing different from writing, different from being as a producer, you have an overview of the whole project.
Hmm.
How did that, what are the challenges that you faced? What are the things that you learned from that process?
Oh, so producing as opposed to writing.
Writing as opposed to, being on stage. So,
Yes. So first of all, writing is very solitary
mm,
at the beginning. Certainly when you have the idea in your head and you're writing your initial draft, etc., before people start to take a look at it, it is very solitary. So it is something that you're kind of in your head, and you're based on whatever it has inspired you or what your experiences or influences are. But once you get through that process, particularly if it's something that you're very passionate about, which is why I believe you would have set out on the path to write it. You of course at that point you could either pitch it to a producer who then takes it on, or
mhm,
you go along the producing journey yourself, which is what I did. And I think you actually alluded to this question before, how the writing sort of segued and transitioned to producing. So
mm,
producing, I found that relying on a different sort of skill set,
mhm,
even though it's still within the creative sphere. So you might as well call it creative producing, because you're producing, but you're producing with the mind of still maintaining the artistic integrity of whatever you're doing. So I
I
think
see.
it was very much about just sort of having the right people in the right roles, which we were very blessed to have, and sort of everyone being sure that everybody is enabled and supported to be able to perform their roles efficiently. I think once you have that, you know, as the sort of like as your one of your value systems for your productions, I think you're onto you're onto a good thing, really. So yes, so different skill sets. Of course, a lot about the budgeting. There's a lot more commercial discussions.
Thinking more like a businessman than an artist,
Absolutely,
a
but then
business
also
person.
yes, but you also do have to consider the art because you want to be able to have a right balance of both. Yes, so at the end of the day, you have you kind of have a full picture of the product that you want, and of course, people make different decisions about what sort of film that they're producing. But yeah, but yeah, so.
Okay, let's move on to more generic questions.
Mhm.
What is your favorite Nollywood movie?
Oh, that's such a good question. That is such a good question.
And let me tell you, someone has actually answered the wedding party to this movie, to this answer. So,
Yeah, I mean, the wedding party is definitely up there, but I mean, I can't really, I'll have to excuse myself from that. So I really enjoyed Bjorn Stevens' sister, not sister.
Mm,
I really enjoyed it there's just a pure form of storytelling and how we could connect with the characters. Interestingly, I watched Blood Vessel last year as well. And I'm sorry, I think I'm now listing sort of all the recent ones. And I know there's some that obviously have that are much more sort of longer in the game. And
yeah.
I'm trying to remember now. Um, so yeah, there was something about Blood Vessel that was actually very compelling. So even though, it was quite a hard watch,
Oh
but then
yes, I could not make it to the end.
you
I
couldn't.
A
Yeah.
friend spoilt it for me, and so I
Oh,
was watching it. I was like, I can't. I actually cannot watch this. So
yeah.
it's a hard watch, which is, of course, a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to say about a Nollywood movie.
Yeah. So what I guess it was that sort of fight for survival till the end. But you're right. There was definitely some difficulty, but I think I was really able to sort of at least root for the characters as much as possible. And I think the sort of the twists and the different sort of power plays that they introduced along the line just kept you engaged. I'm going to keep thinking about this some more because I definitely have more on this list.
Mm.
Um, I definitely have more on this list of my favorite Nollywood movies, and I just don't want to miss out on one that I know is very special. I mean, I also watched Adire last year, and
Mm.
and there was something about that movie as well that I really liked the way it was crafted. I liked the feel good factor as well at the end. I liked the fact that we could make a movie that just had this lovely simplicity of
Mm.
this good naturedness of this woman's character and her attempt to sort of redefine her life in a sense in this new community. I liked it. It felt very old school, felt very nostalgic, and it was nice to see that in a
Did.
Nigerian setting. So I like that. So yeah, so I guess I haven't really told you yet which one my favorite is. To be honest, I'm just telling you the ones that I've liked and I
You
thought
like,
notable. But I'll come back to that. Yes, I owe you an answer. Not today,
okay.
but I owe you one.
No old Nollywood movies that you like particularly liked or resonated with? I mean, I don't think I can answer this question myself.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
Yes, I don't think I can answer this question myself. I definitely like different movies for different reasons, and I
for
love different shots as well.
yes, of
So
course.
it is a very hard question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, it is. It is. Yes, a jam question. So okay, back to that.
Okay, another generic one. Who are your favorite Nollywood actors and actresses? Who is it that you actually particularly resonate with, love to, or will always watch their performance anyway?
Oh wow. Yes, a really good question as well. I'm gonna mention Olu Jacobs. First of all, because of just his legacy in the film industry.
The
And because
gravitas.
his gravitas, because I come from a theater background,
Um,
I just really appreciate what he brings to the screen, and I only wish that we had this opportunity to really see him in this during this phase where obviously Nollywood has become what it is. Just
Yeah.
to really sort of see that sort of that voice, that posture, that just the illustration of that training and that level
Mm.
of training on our screens. You know,
A lot of our veterans of
yes,
Nollywood do come from that theatre background, and it absolutely shows in diction, in the way they carry themselves. So there
yes,
is something of that. How do I say it? There's a nobility of theatre that even when it comes to British dramas, most British actors have a theatre background, and there's just a gravitas, a
yes,
presence that
yes,
theatre does give actors, I
yes.
find.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you. And it's not to say that you can't excel in film if you haven't had a theatre background, but there is definitely an edge, I feel, when you have had one. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. You can definitely tell.
Yeah.
Talk about old Nollywood, new Nollywood. How do
Okay.
you feel about this distinction? Are you in favor of it? Because you are firmly, squarely one of the pioneers of new Nollywood.
Ah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel? Well, yes, Wedding Party, I think, really
Mm,
established new Nollywood that this is the way we do things now. And
mm,
things are very different. So you can see it in the directing and the way, it was presented, even in its cinema showings and everything. It really had a statement to make about new Nollywood.
yes.
So how do you feel about this distinction that we make between old Nollywood, new Nollywood? We're very obsessed with it on the podcast. It's
Mm,
always a topic of conversation.
yes. Um, so I think with any sort of industry, you're going to have the difference in generations. I think again, it's because Nollywood became such a strong brand. That's why it's even a point of discussion. Otherwise, it shouldn't
Mhm.
be. It should all be wrapped around the same ecosystem, right? It's the film industry of Nigeria. But I think it's because of how, possessive people are about Nollywood, and rightly so, because of the way it was created, because it was really created for us, by us, for us.
Mm.
So because of that, we own it, and we almost feel like we lay claim to it. And so that's why these discussions are sometimes very heated and very passionate, because people are very much invested in in this, in terms of, like, the origins and the description of it, etc., and the outcomes, the impact that it's making. So is there a distinction? I would say that I think, you have the soul of old Nollywood. I think if you get it right, you can sort of, not even involve, because it's almost like, sort of, I think, downplaying it, but just elevate sort of like the soul of old Nollywood into new Nollywood. So there's something that made old Nollywood special. There's something like the spirit of old Nollywood that created what we're now all talking about and enjoying, right? And so, sort of incorporating that soul, which could be the drive of just being able just to tell our stories without waiting for anybody to give us permission. That sort of that Nigerian resilient spirit to find sort of ways, find openings, and really do the legwork,
Yeah.
to
And took
see,
ourselves aside.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, just to put our content where it should be, and to get it to its audience, to get it to its market. There's that, but there's also the way we express ourselves,
Mm.
clearly. So there's things like acting styles, yes, which of course you can sort of argue in terms of what sort of fits in with this style, etc., or that style. But I think what is consistent, is that you can never take away the authenticity of
Mm.
of how you tell the story. That's through the script and obviously the acting and the production values around it. And so I think that's what old Nollywood kind of brings to the table, is that authenticity. And I suppose if you're able to sort of use the best of both, so with new Nollywood, you've got sort of, I suppose, better equipment, more channels with which you can now start to show your content, etc. So the market's opened up a little bit more. But we're still all very much, why do we keep going back, telling those stories? Why are people still interested? Because there's a
Mm.
soul of old Nollywood that will just never go away. So I think just, yeah, both sort of working hand in hand to create what is actually the film industry, this evolved film industry. I think is, probably where we'll be looking at in future. Yes.
And thank you. What do you see the future of Nollywood to be?
So I think with any industry, you'll still always have what you should have actually is a diversity of content. So you're still always going to have people who aren't going to resonate with with particular types of storytelling. They may not feel it's their lived experience, or they may just not be interested in how it's presented. They may want a more raw form, a more
Yeah.
that route to access this material. And sometimes even the route to access the material alters sort of things like budget and the really the extent to which you can incorporate certain sort of production values within it, right? But it doesn't stop that content from being made. Of course, we're seeing a lot of content that's just being independently sort of
Yeah.
distributed online, etc. And this is, if any business person were to look at it, they would look at the numbers and they would say this is a successful model. So you can't take that away from any sort of independent creator and producer. So yes, I sort of still see the future being this hybrid, this mix of different types of products and films being made,
Mm.
but for the different routes to market, in a sense, for their particular audiences. And yes, and I just see there being possibly a lot more of that collaboration between, like you said, the old and the new to kind of
Mm.
create more of this
More interesting stories.
yeah, more interesting stories and richer stories as well. Yeah, richer
So what
stories.
what do you say to criticisms that Nollywood now is copying Hollywood? That
Mm,
the stories are kind of soulless,
right.
and because that's a frequent criticism now, Nollywood is we're just copying. There's just
Mm.
like no soul that old Nollywood definitely had, even though we were definitely doing a lot of copying then.
Sure. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean, you do definitely see films that maybe would follow a format,
Mm,
uh, and but I don't think that's representative of all the films that are being done, particularly now. So I think we're having a much wider range of, again, independent producers, and of course, you'll always have the commercial productions that might want to reach a particular audience, and it actually could just be the wish and the desire of a producer, and you can't really take anything away from that if that is the type of story that they want to tell, and if they've been lucky enough to have it produced, then in a way that is really, then that's just a testament to their ability as a producer, right? But we are definitely having, I think we're building in, or we do have eh, quite a lot of authenticity, particularly in the range of films that we're seeing now. I think there's certainly a lot more of an effort to do that now, and
mm,
um, and people are just feeling bolder and more enabled. And hopefully supported to be able to do that. Of course, you've got like our local um, cable network has with the
mm.
African Magic channels. I think we have to admit that has really opened up
A lot of yeah.
a real pipeline for authentic stories that you could say are very true to its setting and don't always follow the Hollywood format, and that people are watching and consuming. And
Mm,
so that's why the channels are obviously still doing very well in the country, because they are catering to the locality's needs.
mm,
So yes, you will have particular films that will break out and will kind of model a particular style, maybe that they were influenced by, and you're going to have the ones that are going to say, nope, I'm going to tell this in the way that is authentic to me and my own experience and my setting, and I know my audience is going to was going to resonate to it and resonate with it. So yeah, so I suppose I guess you're always going to have that diversity of offerings.
Okay, so our last episode was about Ron's Girls movie, which me
Mhm.
and my host Tony really love. Have you
Right.
heard about the genre?
Runs girls movies.
Yes, that Nollywood genre of bad girls doing bad things.
That's interesting. Okay, so I guess I could put two and two together to to get an understanding of what that genre is. So I haven't heard of the term in a sense, but I do I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yes, starting from glamour girls
Mm,
to Domitilla
mm.
to Blackberry babes. What is your opinion of this genre as a very, it is so common.
Mm.
It is very, very, very common in Nollywood. What's your opinion of
My
why
opinion.
this genre is prevalent, so prevalent in Nollywood?
Um, hmm. So, number one, I would probably say probably because it's a commercial genre.
Hmm.
So, I think that people, yeah. So obviously, you put something like that on a poster, you will get a lot of people who are interested in it. So there would be commercial reasons for it, but I'd also like to look a bit deeper to say that people like to tell the story of because usually what would happen is that you'll find that the girls in these movies, not all the time, but most of the time, you'd hope you would find a redemptive story or a success story in the whole scheme of in the various stories within the production. So I would also like to think that it's because people like to tell the story of obviously rising out of the ashes, or working your way out of a very unfortunate circumstance as well. So I think maybe there's also that desire as well. You can you say that, yeah, about a lot of other sort of TV formats, or should we say TV themes that, or sorry, film themes that are explored around the world, So yeah, so the Runs Girl theme, I suppose you would say it's something that maybe through various lived experiences, once you go to school in Nigeria, you go to uni, and this is not just
Everywhere.
a Nigerian issue, but I think people enjoy sort of displaying it on screen. I think because it's probably something that's very attractive and very easy to like sort of
Easy to
visually capture audiences with. So I would imagine that's why people would choose that
Now,
route.
let's talk about the morality. In the episode, I made the point that who
Mm,
is being taken
mm,
advantage of. Well, the position of women in society, especially in Nigerian society,
mm,
women are not in a favorable position. There's still a lot of misogyny and sexism. So
yes.
I was of the opinion that the person being taken advantage of are the girls. But my
Mm,
co-host is of the
opinion.
opinion that no, it's the men who are using these services that are being taken advantage of. What
Mm.
is your position on that?
Oh wow. Okay. So I think that where you have a situation of a girl being introduced or groomed into this industry, then 100% she's the one being taken advantage of. She's a victim.
Mm. But
Um,
some might say it is though empowering because the woman does now have a means to rise up, as you said, rise from the
right
ashes of a
answers
situation.
if she chooses. So if with her eyes wide open as an adult and she chooses that, so without putting any question as to the morality behind it, because clearly there'll be a discussion around that. But just going back to there's this question of exploitation.
Mm.
So a woman who has decided that that's the way she wants to sort of be profitable in life and advance in life, that is a different situation to somebody who doesn't know, who is unaware, who's still growing, who's almost still forming, who
Mm.
uh, has almost maybe in a position of oppression, or where there is some form of power over her, that even she doesn't know really that
Mm.
that's really the power play that's happening at that point in time. Then she has been victimized, and then she is being exploited. Even if she eventually grows and sort of becomes, this the most successful
Big
madame
madam.
in that
Yes.
industry. The fact is that the way she was introduced was exploitative. I feel, well, again, you come to that issue of choice between a consenting man and a consenting woman. However, I think opening up yourself to the industry as a purchaser of those services, you're also signing yourself up to the morality that you know or you do not know that exists. But I don't think from the purchaser's point of view, you're not really addressing that. You're just addressing your needs. However, you're not addressing the fact that you are participating in what is potentially and is possibly most often than not exploitative. So
I agree. Okay, the time is getting long, so I would just one last segment where we play a game, and this would be a very interesting game, especially for you.
mhm.
Now, imagine you had unlimited money. You had unlimited time, access, everything. And you were to create a movie. What would you create the movie? You can choose any actor, and obviously it's a Nollywood movie. You can choose any
Oh
actor, dead or alive. You can choose
gosh.
any setting. What would be the basis of your movie?
You said unlimited budget, right?
Yes, you have on this is your fantasy movie. As a producer, what would you want to see? What would you like to make?
Oh gosh, not to be a one-trick pony. I'd love to make my musical because I've been making it
Oh,
for so many years.
and so there have been, and we're going to have an episode on Nollywood musicals. But
Mm.
do you think musicals can work in Nollywood?
100%. I think we're we're naturally musical in nature. Music infiltrates music and even the act of musical theater, which is this almost like overly expressive. They say the reason why you have songs in a musical is because you have reached the height of expression. You can't express yourself any further with words that you have to burst into song. And we are already like that as a culture.
That is
We express and we overexpress. I think it's only natural to sort of combine the two art forms of acting and singing, and performance. And so maybe it's because of my love for performance. And so for me, musical theater really helps. It just takes it to the edge.
true.
You can never be accused of sort of being too emotional or too or overperforming because that's what the genre lends itself to, just sort of throwing out all your emotions on the table. So yeah, so I'd like to do something that is that unbridled in its form of expression and thematic exploration, etc.
That is a first. We've had thrillers, we've had dramas, but we've never had musicals.
Yeah.
So who are you casting in this musical? Who's your male lead? Do you have
Oh,
a male lead? Who's your female lead?
I don't
Who are you casting in this movie?
I don't have, and even if I did have, I wouldn't mention it because I'll get into trouble. So,
But what is the good thing about your movie? So when people go to see it in cinemas, they come out, what are they saying is the best thing about your fantasy movie?
oh, the one that I want to make. Oh,
Yes.
um, so something that gives them hope. So I always like to start off with outside of all the what's it called? Um, Hopefully, what would be the quality of the film, the quality of the acting, performance, etc., and the storyline. I'm really very big on message. Well, how is this making you feel? How is this impacting you? So something that I believe gives them hope because it will be a story about um, what I believe is our combined lived experience in Lagos. And that's something that can be hard to do because of the various demographics. But maybe hopefully something that at least tries to start to scratch at that surface a little bit more, even though, and it has been done in, quite a few films already. So just, kind of giving a different angle on it, what that hope really means for us as people sort of living and working in Nigeria or in Lagos, I suppose, particularly, um, and the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So so just one that resonates with hope and hopefully one that resonates with a call to action, but not necessarily
Mhm.
call to action as we know it. Because when we hear call to action, we hear, okay, let's go on the front lines and let's do this and let's do that. It certainly is a place for that, but a call to action that could be more introspective, So yeah, so
More.
things
But this
dealing
this musical is set in Lagos. Will there
certainly
be dancing?
there will be dancing, yes.
Oh, wow.
They'll be dancing, they'll be
That's,
singing.
that I would really love to see a movie like that, to be
Yeah.
honest. That is done well. We've had some musicals, some of it. I feel have just not been, it just doesn't feel realistic to our lived experiences. But
Yeah.
I trust you. What is the bad thing about your movie? So people come out and then the reviewers are saying, okay, everything was good, but because nothing is 100% great.
Hmm.
What is the bad thing that they will say about your movie?
Well, the only thing I could probably imagine is possibly if I don't cover, as a writer, you probably try to be as empathetic as possible to your characters. You sort of you owe your characters the breadth of their stories, right, and their journeys, and possibly it might be that maybe not, I wasn't able to please everybody in that instance.
So some people are saying, oh, the representation of this person, I don't like it. Or
Perhaps,
the
or
representation
yeah,
of this social demographic is not. No.
perhaps, yes, yes, it could be that. Could be that. It could be that. I hope it's not, but it could be.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, with me.
You're welcome.
I learned a lot of things. It's a very informative and really looking forward to seeing what next you have in store for us. Is there anything that you would like to add, you would like to say to the people listening to the podcast?
Oh, yes, well, we're just very excited about what is going on in the industry, and and just really looking forward to this shared experience of us consuming, enjoying, and partaking in telling our stories. And yes, let's enjoy the ride.
Okay, that's great. So where can people find you?
Me, I'm at the Garden Theatre on social media. So yeah,
So if you want to follow Auntie, you can find her at the Garden Theatre on Instagram, Facebook, and X, Twitter, whatever
uh,
it's called.
yes. I'm
So
not too
thank
sure.
you so much.
Thank you too, Mimi. It was lovely talking with you.
Yeah, yeah. Now, for our listeners, thank you so much for listening to us have this conversation, and see you in the next episode.